Doug Ford pays a visit to Greenstone. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Premier was there today to sign agreements with 4 First Nations. The partnerships are with Ganugaming, Airland, AZA, and Long Lake 58 First Nations to help bring economic development and resource opportunities to that part of the region. Among Ford's announcements was a promise to build or improve highway infrastructure to better connect First Nations to the province's highway network. Ford and Minister Greg Rickford also announced $1.9 million for Indigenous workforce development related to mining and $2 million for the construction of Magizi Commercial Plaza to be located on Highway 11 just outside Geraldton. 3 of the 4 First Nations partners are in that project. Ford says these agreements create real opportunities for economic growth and job creation for Indigenous people in the Greenstone area.
Since day one, our government has been dedicated to building meaningful partnerships with First Nations communities across the province, true partnerships that put First Nations leaders in the driver's seat to help ensure their communities have the same access to critical services and can share the same economic opportunities as those in other parts of our province.
TBT's Justin Hardy was in Greenstone with the Premier today, and he'll have the full story on tomorrow's NewsHour. More details have come to light about that incident yesterday evening involving a child who was struck by a pickup truck on Huron Avenue. Thunder Bay police officers responded at around 5:45 p.m. It happened in the busy area near the sports field on Huron between Matthews and David Streets. Police confirmed today that the collision involved a motor vehicle and a 12-year-old cyclist. The youth was transported to hospital for injuries described as serious but non-life-threatening. A BMX bike and helmet could be seen on the side of the road. Members of the traffic unit are involved in the investigation, which is ongoing at this time. It looks like City Council will be walking back its new 1-hour minimum for metered parking, less than 3 weeks after the new parking regulations were implemented. Council seems to be reeling from the stiff public opposition. Lee Noonan was at last night's council meeting and has this report.
New parking regulations went into effect on June 1st, and the public backlash has council rethinking their plan. They voted to scrap a 1-hour parking minimum and reintroduce parking by 15-minute increments following criticism from downtown businesses.
When somebody's going down, they're going to stop off for 2 minutes, pick up a $3 or $4 coffee, and they're going to get a $2 charge on top of that.
Some businesses are saying, my customers are telling me they're not coming back because they don't, they're not going to pay parking for this.
The change still needs to be ratified and will take some time to implement. City administration expects it will impact the parking authority's bottom line, but couldn't say by how much. Ensuring the financial stability of the parking authority was the goal of the new regulations.
It's only been 3 weeks. We knew this opposition was coming. We know we need the revenue, and we know we need to change things to make a system that's sustainable long-term.
Although actually reopening the matter would be an extensive process, most on council seemed ready to revisit the plan, which they just approved in January.
We watch the provincial government walk back decisions, huge decisions, on a regular basis because of the response that they get from their constituents. And I think we owe our constituents that same level of acknowledgement.
We're investing $13 million downtown to make it vibrant, and then you're charging parking for 3 hours at nighttime when I want you to go to restaurants, I want you to go to bars.
If we're going to say we're going to punish people to park, we're not going to get the housing built there. Our downtown intensification won't happen.
The impact on downtown residents in particular was flagged as a blind spot. Brian Arbour spoke on behalf of an informal group of downtown PA residents who say the parkade there isn't safe, leaving street parking as the only real option.
I'm down there now paying for parking at 6:45, and when I get home at 4 o'clock, I'm now paying for 5 hours of parking after I get home from work.
I can't even imagine what the residents are going through. I apologize to the residents.
Etrenny put forward a motion asking for more consultation with residents. That passed, and administration will report back to council on July 22nd. Everyone living in the North or South Core areas where there's metered parking is encouraged to reach out directly to municipal parking services. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Also, at last night's meeting, Council approved a rezoning application that could make way for a new central library at Intercity Shopping Centre, and the planned indoor tennis centre at Chapels Park is moving ahead. The decision to sign a ground lease with the Thunder Bay Tennis Centre and designate it a municipal capital facility results in a tax savings for the facility and recognizes its value to the community. Following a closed session meeting, the motion passed without debate. However, there was pushback when it came to the rezoning for the library. Councillor Mark Bentz raised concerns with the idea that leasing space to the library could result in lost tax revenue coming from the mall.
If an exemption is requested and approved by City Council, our preliminary estimates would be that it would be $220,000 per year reduction in tax revenue.
We have 55 letters of support from across the community, ranging from business groups, social service agencies, environmental organizations, private volunteer clubs. It's a really overwhelming and diverse group of community supporters who are publicly endorsing this project and its zoning and planning implications.
Despite some opposition, the zoning change did pass. The decision can be reversed by council if they decide not to go ahead with the plan for a central library at the mall. A motion to defer receiving the library's master facilities plan until July 22nd was also approved. After some debate, the plan itself is expected to be made public well in advance of that meeting. An external consultant is being hired to study the Thunder Bay Police staffing model and service delivery. The study was brought up and approved at today's Police Services Board meeting. The Deputy Chief says the goal is to continue to build the public's trust in the force, and the board also discussed the police's role in the local Pride Parade this past weekend. With the increase in demand for services from the Thunder Bay Police, an outside consultant is about to be brought in.
So we want to do a full assessment to see if we need more officers, if we need more civilian staff, or if we restructure, will what we have sustain us.
The role of the consultant would be to see if there are any gaps currently when it comes to human resources and find ways to improve organization, effectiveness, and efficiency throughout all levels of the police force. The tender would be issued in July, with the successful bidder chosen by August and work beginning the following month. Hugh says having an outside consultant would mitigate the potential for any local bias.
If it's a company within Thunder Bay that is successful, then we will go with a company in Thunder Bay. They will need policing experience, as we'll be assessing our police officers and our civilian staff and our efficiencies and our service delivery.
Also at the police board meeting, the force's involvement with the local Pride events was a topic of discussion. Back in April, Pride groups met with police, which prompted a call for more education around the meaning of Pride for local officers, and that's now being implemented.
Putting some of those training videos out there for officers to have a better understanding and education as to, the feelings and the sentiment around police involvement with their activities. So that's a start. I think we're going in the right direction, as well as continuing to work towards building our diverse community.
As for the Pride events over the weekend, Fleury says the parade went ahead without incident, with many officers volunteering to take part.
It's really important for us. Of course, we'll attend and participate to whatever event, to however they want us to participate. It's really important, and that's the part of the communication and the working together is to whatever extent they wish us to be involved, we will.
LCBO employees will be in a legal strike position on July 5th, according to the union. OPSU, the union which represents about 10,000 LCBO employees, says that date was chosen so as to not impact the first long weekend of the summer. CTV's John Musselman has the details.
Members of the OPSU bargaining team say there has been no progress at the negotiating table at this downtown hotel, and the countdown is now on to a strike by 10,000 workers at the province's LCBO outlets.
It seems very clear that every time we speak to the employer, they have to go off to get answers on things. We're not getting anything from our employer.
If there is no deal, workers will be in a legal strike position at 12:01 a.m. on July the 5th. The union says it's fighting against the province's plan to expand alcohol sales to other retail outlets like convenience stores. But that is a policy the provincial Tory government is unlikely to back away from. Still, the union says compromise is possible.
What we have put across the table to them is a comprehensive plan that in detail protects good jobs in our communities. It makes sure that there is security for those part-time workers. It makes sure that Ontarians are protected, but most of all, it prevents additional contracting out.
Meanwhile, it is customers who will be caught in the middle if the union goes on strike.
Well, I don't think it's good for the city or the province.
I think it's right for the workers to stand up and advocate.
I think they should go on strike. There's no reason to put them in the corner stores.
I think it'll ruin people's weekends, but that's about it.
For its part, the government-operated liquor retailer says it does not want a strike, but customers, it says, will not be shut out. Should a strike occur, LCBO has measures in place to ensure continued customer service and will provide updates to our customers and partners. Workers currently earn between $17 and $30 an hour. The union is seeking wage increases. It also wants better job security, more permanent and full-time positions, expanded public retail locations and opening hours, and expanded LCBO warehousing.
And that was CTV's John Musselman reporting. The Michipicoten iron ore ship could be heading out of the Thunder Bay Harbor as early as tomorrow. The damaged vessel has been moored at Kiefer Terminal since it nearly sank in Lake Superior last weekend. The Michipicoten suffered a 4-meter-long crack in the bottom of its hull after leaving two harbors on June 8th. The vessel took on water but managed to make it to Thunder Bay. A local dive crew has welded a temporary patch over the crack, and the remaining water was removed. Its cargo of taconite pellets was then transferred to a sister ship, the Manitoulin, this past weekend. A spokesperson at the local port says the 72-year-old Michipicoten is expected to leave Kiefer Terminal sometime this week, and sources say it's headed for the Fraser Shipyard's repair facility in Superior, Wisconsin. Canada Post is honoring the late Josephine Mendeman by putting local water rights activists on a postage stamp. She was a Anishinaabe elder who co-founded the Mother Earth Water Walk movement. Her stamp was unveiled this morning at the Spirit Garden at Marina Park. Jess Clement has the details.
Josephine Mendeman, fondly remembered as Grandmother Water Walker, dedicated her life to protecting the waters and advocating for Indigenous rights and water conservation. The residential school survivor walked more than 25,000 kilometers, including around all 5 Great Lakes, to raise awareness of the need to preserve water. She passed away in 2019, and to honor her legacy, Canada Post created a commemorative stamp and unveiled it at the city waterfront. Mendeman was born on Manitoulin Island, but lived most of her life in Thunder Bay, which made the Spirit Garden the perfect setting for the ceremony. The celebration brought out a number of Mendeman's friends and family, including her daughter, Regina. She described her mother as a very kind, hardworking, and generous person who really cared about the environment and the water.
I think it really is an important time for Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people to learn about how we can work together to preserve the water and take care of Mother Earth. So it's really nice to see her message to be communicated through this way to everyday people. I think it's really a fulfilling moment for sure.
Mendeman also worked with the Ontario Native Women's Association in various capacities throughout the years. CEO Cora Maguire-Surrett says it's really good for the community to be able to celebrate female Indigenous leaders.
Particularly, a woman like Josephine, who's left such a huge legacy in our community, and being able to really showcase, especially when you're looking now in Canada, how we're facing crisis, water crises all around. Now is the time for us to take up that responsibility, for us to really look at how we're contributing to this water crisis. We need to start to protect the environment, and the time is now.
The stamp is part of Canada Post's third Indigenous Leader Stamp series. John Hamilton, Vice President of Strategic Communications for Canada Post, says the Assembly of First Nations recommended they honor Mendeman with a stamp.
For Grandmother Josephine, her story of reminding us all of the power and the vitality of water, and the kilometers that she walked and everything, and dedicating her life to that, is just a story that so many people should know, and we're happy to be a small part of telling that story.
The stamp, along with 2 others, will be issued on June 21st, National Indigenous Peoples Day. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
TBT has handed out $30,000 to 5 regional organizations through the latest TBT for Good campaign. 5 winning projects were chosen from a record 63 submissions. More than $9,300 is going to Whitefish School for kindergarten play yard enhancements. Comni Emergency Services is getting the same amount for a new life-saving tool to be used in traffic collisions. $5,500 is going to the Rainy Lake Ski Club for maintenance and equipment. The Dryden Fire Department is getting $4,000 to install free fire alarms for residents. And Pope John Paul School has been awarded $1,600 to connect grade 7 students with seniors at Pioneer Ridge. Oh, I always love hearing all the people and organizations that get to benefit from that TBT for Good campaign. Turning to weather now, Haley. It was hot out there, but it wasn't exactly the heat we wanted.
Well, yes, we were expecting it to get into the 20s, but it's not too late to see that today, actually.
Okay.
So our current high is 19 degrees, which is what we're at this hour. But we actually aren't expected to hit our high for the day until around 8 p.m. At that point, it'll be around 24 degrees, and the humidex could make it feel like 29. So we're actually still building in heat as the day goes on. Our low today, though, was 10 degrees earlier on in the morning, so we're seeing quite a shift. Luckily, winds were light to moderate. We saw mostly cloudy to cloudy skies, back to mostly cloudy again, and we did have a light afternoon rain shower around 1 and 2 p.m. But what's really interesting is what is about to come. So we do have some warnings in the region. So as we can see on our map here to the east and southeast of us, there are many heat warnings in effect as it is getting quite warm, especially with that humidex, and that humidex is affecting the gray areas. That's why they have special weather statements as well. And then more in our region in Thunder Bay, we're looking at things like rainfall warnings and severe thunderstorm watches. But in that area as well, there are a strip of cities and areas that are looking at tornado warnings. Those places are Atikokan, Uppsala, Shabandawan, and Quetico Park. So that's where we're looking to see the hardest intensity of the storm hit. At those points, you could see things like 100-kilometer-an-hour wind gusts at times, potential large hail, as well as intense rainfall. So that's mainly in those Atikokan, Uppsala, Shabandawan, and Quetico Park areas. You definitely want to be careful there. And elsewhere, it's more like rainfall warnings and severe thunderstorm watches. Now, let's take a look at our region to see what's happening. Today, we're seeing 2 storms that have amalgamated, and they're now building together. And so at this hour, we have that long strip there that is building in intensity, and that's where we're seeing the heavier risks moving inwards. But right now in our region, Fort Frances, they've been seeing rain showers all day, and that's continuing with that risk of thunderstorm. They're currently at 16 degrees. Dryden cooler, they're at 14, and they've had on and off showers. It's back there right now. Kenora has been overcast for most of the day. They're at 19, similar to that of Red Lake. They had a morning shower, then a break in that time frame in the afternoon, but it is just starting to creep back in that rain now. Atikokan is one of those areas of risk that I mentioned. They're seeing heavy rainstorms right now. Thunderstorm in Uppsala right now, they're at 18 degrees. But over in areas like Armstrong and Nipigon, they're mainly partly cloudy to mainly cloudy. Greenstone, though, is still bright and sunny. They are at 26 right now. And then areas like Marathon and Wawa, they're where we start to see that heavy humidex, close to the mid-30s, 34, 35 degrees. And Sault Ste. Marie actually did hit 30 degrees today with humidex much higher than that, about 38 degrees humidex-wise. And they have just started to see some showers as well with a risk of thunderstorm. Now for Thunder Bay in particular tonight, we are going to be cloudy and we are going to see some showers. We could actually see significant rainfall. We had a special weather statement. We're looking at seeing 30 to 50 millimeters of rain. So that downpour is going to come on fairly strong. But it'll end around 3 in the morning. From then on, we'll have about a 40% chance of showers continuing, but the risk of thunderstorm will loom throughout the night. So yes, lots of action, lots of storm potential. And I'll definitely keep you up to date on that and all the heat warnings as the news hour continues.
Okay, you know what? It might be like Storm Watcher Haley now for today. Instead of hot weather.
Hailstorm.
Yes, that's it. I like that. Thank you so much, Haley.
No problem.
Well, when we come back, the House of Commons is set to rise in 3 days for the summer, but there is still a lot to be accomplished. And we'll have more on that as your Tuesday News Hour continues.
How can we trust anything he says about taxes, poverty, or money?
Because his answer is completely illogical and unfounded.